beautiful people, and welcome to this episode of the Playmakers Corner podcast. I am Gideon, and today I'm going to be your host for this episode of the show. If you hear a little bit of background noise, my cat, Inanna, she has decided to sit in on this as well, but today we are recapping the Sunday, May 19th Mile High Prep game in the Prep Super League against the team from down in Houston, who, I'm just going to say this, they had a bunch of guys with more than 3 stars on that roster. They were a little bit shorthanded because of the hurricane down in Houston right now, but all around it was a very, very competitive matchup between the two teams, and really it came down to Mile High Prep having that much more depth around the roster. So I'm going to go through here. I was joined in this escapade. It is Sunday, May 19th, while we're recording this, by Mason Austin and Phoenix Barons. And so I'll be ending this off once we are done with the interviews that we were able to get with a couple of the athletes from today's matchup, Adrian, Symalla, and Caden, Absher, along with our playmakers of the game. We have a couple of them from Houston this time as well that we are going to be shouting out. So I'm just going to jump right into it. First off, Mile High Prep did win the coin toss, got the ball to start, and Alex Birch managed to pass over to one of his receivers on the right side. Couldn't see the number there, but it was for a 12-yard gain. And then number 24, that is Raymond Samo from Cherry Creek, would get an 8-yard gain. And then number 26, who is Chris Planks, the Grandview sophomore, he managed to get a 5-yard run to make it 1st and 10. Then we have Luke Strickland getting a 5-yard gain in there. And then Cash Spence managed to get a reception. And then there was a check down throw with a high snap, which unfortunately lost a few yards here. Then number 26, again, that is Chris Blanks, managed to gain 10 yards on a screen here. And Jaden Green from Arvada West would unfortunately have a 3-yard loss. This was in field goal range of Blake Pancratz, but it looked to us like it was tipped, but we couldn't fully tell by who, so right as of this point in the game, it was 0-0. Starting at 1st and 10 from Houston, number 1, he managed to go for 3 yards and then broke a tackle by number 52 for Mile High Prep in the backfield. That is Kevin Sanchez, whose tackle got broke there from Arvada West. And number 1 managed to make it 11 yards, but a fumbled snap led to it being a Mile High Prep ball, 1st and 10 on the 34. And it was either number 95, who is Jack Francis from Cherry Creek, or number 80, who is Keegan Perea from Cherry Creek. Either way, it was Bruin who got the fumble recovery there, but it was one of the two. And then there was an insane throw by Alex Birch, which was caught by Cash Spence very, very far down the field. It was incredible. A great highlight that I wish we could use because it did get called back due to an ineligible receiver downfield. That was Jaden Symalla. I didn't see that part, but that's what they called, making it 2nd and 15. Number 22 here at Caden Absher would run for 5 yards, and then after an overthrow, a Mile High Prep Blank Pancratz would punt it to the 4-yard line. Then number 1 for Houston would throw to number 3 for a 3-yard slant, and then a blindside block by number 9 from Houston on 2nd and 7. This is a play where without that call, Houston probably would have managed to gain a 1st down. I believe they actually did before the blindside block call was made. Number 12 from Houston would get a 12-yard run on the read option. Number 2 is the quarterback here. He actually had a pretty all right game, and then there was a holding on the defense from Termaine Shaw from Fountain Fort Carson, which led to a first down from Houston. First, there was an incompletion, and then number 3 for Houston managed to get a 45-yard snag, which I had an absolutely terrible angle on, so I wasn't able to get very much video of it, but it was an incredible catch. Really, really good hands. Good dot from the quarterback as well. And then the quarterback, speaking of, he managed to get a 3-yard gain on the ground for himself before throwing to 0-0 for no gain. And then there was an overthrow after that. Number 2 for Houston would manage to save this drive and managed to scramble for a 1st and 10, first down here. At this point, Houston was on the goal line, and so they had a fresh set of downs here. Number 1 would get a 2-yard gain, and then number 4, unfortunately, would be responsible for a 2-yard loss. But after an incompletion, they managed to get 4th and goal, and then Mile High Prep would manage to get a stop on the 1-yard line to keep this a scoreless game. And this immediately started with number 23, Jaden Green, managing to gain 5 yards on the ground. Before number 5, Tyler Anderson from out in the Legacy, he would get another 5-yard gain to get the Mile High Prep squad a fresh set of downs. Birch would throw over to number 14, Luke Strickland from Fairview, for 7 yards before Anderson would gain 10 yards over the course of 2 plays. There was a perfect... Okay, these next couple were kind of frustrating because there were perfect throws to wide open receivers. It just didn't really work out. There was a throw that was missed, that was down the seam, dropped by number 19. But then Adrian Symalla would gain 5 yards, making this 3rd and 3. Before Adrian Symalla from Arvada West, the Wildcat, came out. I thought he was going to be stopped, but he didn't just break 1 tackle. He managed to get 20 yards, break 2 guys' ankles so that they fall into each other, break a couple more guys' ankles, managed to get all the way down to the 1-yard line before he was stopped. And the very next play, he managed to get his way in for the 2-yard touchdown, and it was beautiful. That was one of the most exciting plays I've ever seen, especially on defenders that were that good. It was wild. And so this put MHP up 7-0 with 1:16 left in the first half. Number 2 for Houston would have a 20-yard run, though, and then over the next 2 plays after that, he would manage to get 10 yards over the next 2 downs. 1st and 10 with 40 seconds left. Number 3 would manage to get a new set of downs on a good catch, but then there was a fumble by the quarterback, number 2. He did manage to recover it, but it was an incompletion after that, followed by going into halftime, it wasn't a Hail Mary, but it was a last-ditch effort for the half, and an interception to end the half there. We believe that was number 15 from Mile High Prep who got that. Brody Schuss from Legend High School. Absolutely insane half there against Houston. Looking at it, it is Houston's ball to start the second half then. Number 2, the quarterback, would overthrow, and a fumbled handoff would look like it was about to be fumbled, but Houston did manage to save that possession. DJ Crow, number 0 for Mile High Prep out of Denver East, almost got a sack, but he would have shared that sack with number 80, who is Keegan Perea from Cherry Creek, and there was a face mask call on Perea. So It was still good pressure, but that would make a fresh set of downs for Houston. Number 2 for Houston, I'm just going to call them the Blues, since that's the Navies, the Houston Navies. That's the color of their jersey. They managed to scramble for 4, and after an incompletion, though, they had a 3rd down and 5. And there was a really, really good rush there that managed to be stopped by number 56. Number 56, who is Vincent Vigil from Arvada West. And he managed to make it, 3rd and 13 here. And then after an incompletion on that 3rd and 13, it ended up just being thrown away. And so here's the thing, is that Houston didn't really have their special teams because of the weather down in Houston right now. They were missing about 10 of their players. So they were a little bit short on the depth chart. I don't know if any of those players were the long snapper or punter or kicker. On the touchdown that they did eventually score, they went for 2, and it was a bit iffy. But that is that is what we are speculating, is that one of the players that would have been with them would have been a punter or kicker. Another player, number 3 for Houston, is a 5-star receiver who ended up having to play both ways for the same reason, basically. But back to it. Mile High Prep would throw away, making it 2nd and 10. And then, back to it, number 26, again, Chris Blanks from Grandview. He had a lot of good stuff going on this game in particular. He managed to get a 30-yard run in and managed to make it a 1st and goal situation, while Blanks, he would manage to get a yard gain on the run attempt here. Alex Birch would actually throw it into Jackson Blanchard, the tight end out of Castleview, number 19 for this squad, which was beautiful. Right over the middle, Blanchard was perfectly open in the end zone. I managed to get a good clip of the celebration. He was getting hoisted up in the air. It was beautiful. This made it a 14-0 game for Mile High Prep in the 3rd quarter. And then Houston here would get the ball back. Number 2, the quarterback, would have a 6-yard scramble, and number 3, the 5-star receiver, would have a 7-yard reception here, making it 1st and 10. And after an incompletion, that was the end of the 3rd quarter. On 2nd and 10, number 1 for the Houston Navy was able to get a 14-yard run, making it 1st down. And after an illegal sub on the defense, and there was an incident where there was a really bad snap, but the quarterback was able to get off a great throw over to number 00, the tight end, who managed to get an 11-yard gain on that play. Then to start this set of downs, number 1 would get a 4-yard run, followed by number 00, who was able to get a 4-yard reception. Number 1 would get a couple more yards before number 2, the quarterback, again was able to get a very shifty scramble for 1st and goal. Number 2, the quarterback, and number 1 were extremely shifty in this game. They were able to adjust what they needed to do on a dime, and they had some of the better footwork that I have seen in person. And so in those final 10 yards, there was a pass interference call on number 22 for Mile High Prep, Caden Absher. But this team, Mile High Prep, did manage to stuff the ball for a 1-yard loss on the 3-yard line, but then it basically ended up on the very next play where the quarterback, number 2, managed to throw absolute dime over to 00, who he had managed to find a spot where he was open. He basically just had to stand still and catch it. So he managed to get that for the touchdown for Houston, but the 2-point conversion was stopped by Mile High Prep, making it a 14-6 game for Houston here in the fourth quarter. And when Mile High Prep got back on offense, number 26, again, Chris Blanks, just again and again, managed to get another 10-yard gain. And after an incompletion, he managed to get another 5. Number 9 from Houston, credit to him, would actually have a very, very good tackle for loss to make Mile High Prep punt, because at that point they were on 4th and 8 and getting pushed back to that 4th and 8 was not very good in that situation. And so the good thing for Mile High Prep, though, is that Blake Pancratz, the kicking specialist from Valor Christian, he came out to play. He managed to get the punt to the 3-yard line, which is absolutely insane. And might I add, I believe it was also Termaine Shaw, who is a DB from Fountain Fort Carson, but I think, if I'm remembering correctly, the ball got a very, very good bounce thanks to Pankratz's kick, and Shaw just came in and scooped it. Well, not scooped, because it was in the air, snagged that thing out of the air and managed to grab it right before it would have gone down and potentially bounced into the end zone. So very good job there. Number 3 from the Houston Navy, again, the 5-star receiver. He managed to get a 5-yard gain, making it 3rd and 5 after a couple of relatively inconsequential plays. And then number 1 would get a 6-yard gain, which is really, really good, before a 17-yard reception by number 1. Again, really, really good player there. And then after an incompletion, number 1 would again shift for a 10-yard gain. And by shift there, I mean he was going all over the place. You could barely see where his feet were. He was moving that fast. He managed to just go left, go right, and speed past a couple of guys to get 1st and 10. But then, right when it looked like the Houston Navy's offense was clicking, number 22 for Mile High Prep, Caden Absher, he managed to get an interception and took it straight to the house. Absolutely just packed it in there. Insane game. Then, while Absher was taking it to the house, not really a little, because there were a lot of big guys involved, but a conflict broke out between the different players on the field, between Houston and Mile High Prep. I did not get that on video. I was focused on the pick 6, but both teams ended up being credited with an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. And then they had to do the PAT, which ended up being a fake. So Cash Spence is the holder for PATs, and so Spence took the snap from number 4, by the way, who's Graham Broughton from Valor Christian. Spence is also a receiver from Valor, but Spence took the ball and managed to toss it cross-body, I believe it was, over to the right side, over to Jackson Blanchard for the 2-point conversion, making it a 22-6 Mile High Prep lead with 48 seconds left. This made chances extremely low that even if Houston did score here, that they would be able to win this game. But that did not change how hard a bunch of these Houston players were going to play. Notably, number 4, who is a sophomore by the name of Chris Brown, he managed to get a 35-yard catch from the quarterback, Jaquan Brandon, I believe his name is, just got his name in, and absolutely insane one there. And then 00 would manage to get a 12-yard catch, and after an incompletion and a really solid run to try to get something on the board here, by Brandon. That's all she wrote. Mile High Prep would end up coming out of this game with the 22-6 win over a granted shorthanded Houston squad. But a win is a win. Even against a shorthanded team, this is a win against a Texas team. A very strong Houston team with a bunch of guys with at least 3 stars on that roster. A couple of the guys on the offensive line. Obviously, the receiver I was talking about earlier. And watching some of these guys play, I have no doubt that they're going to earn their stars soon. And so, that ends the particular game recap. But next, we're going to jump into our player shoutout segment, which you may remember from last episode. Simon started this off where each of the PMC guys who were at this game, we read a couple of our favorite players of the game and why we think they had such a big impact and the different aspects of what they were able to do. So I'm going to start with Phoenix's picks for today's game. Phoenix is starting with Chris Blanks. Phoenix said about Chris Blanks, quote, really patient and gets the yards he needs running hard and keeping a good vision to match with his size. On defense, Phoenix chose the whole defensive line, and he said that they really controlled the flow of this game and did a really good job against a star-studded offensive line to be able to contain what really was a potent offense despite what we had heard about a couple of guys not being able to make it. Mason is up next with his playmakers of the game, and so we're going to start out with number 75 from Mile High Prep, Cannon Smith, out of Valor Christian High School, the 6'5", 270-pound lineman. Mason said that he was an absolutely unstoppable force. Next up was number 54, Gideon Symalla, who, quote, MHP's great power and had a never-end mentality. And then Mason also wanted to shout out some of these Houston guys, like number 1, who was, quote, an absolutely insane runner with great balance. Number 4, again, that is Chris Brown, the sophomore, who he said was also a really, really good runner with some remarkable footwork and really good attention to details in here. Number 2, again, that is Jaquan Brandon, who was, quote, super hard to tackle and shifty with a solid arm. Before number 70, who, quote, was fundamentally a sound lineman with great hands and speed. And so, really, really good from Mason here. I will also give my props to number 4. Number 4 and number 2, because number 2, he, as the quarterback, obviously did get a lot of the shine, but number 4 stood out to me as one of the best players on the field today. And learning the fact that he is only a sophomore makes me really optimistic about his future as a player and what he'll be able to do moving forward. We chose 2 overall PMC playmakers of the game, which I did manage to get some interviews with after the game, but 2 of the guys I want to shout out, starting with offense, are number 19, Jackson Blanchard, the tight end, 6'4", 225, out of Castleview High School in Castle Rock, Colorado. I believe that Jackson was able to get some good separation against an elite defense here, and he always found an open spot in the end zone for himself. He played the role of a tight end. He was able to block when he needed to, but he was also able to finish these drives, both on special teams, where he was the guy who received that 2-point conversion, but he also caught what really was one of the, granted there were only 3 touchdowns, but what was the touchdown of the third quarter, in that without that touchdown, that game is far from certain. And if he hadn't been able to make the presence that he did, it may have ended much closer than it had. Maybe a 14-6 game, maybe even closer to tied. So very good job there from Blanchard. And then the other guy I want to shout out is number 0, the defensive lineman from Denver East High School, the 6'3", 215 defensive end, DJ Crow. This is my first time seeing DJ in person, and by golly, he is good. He is good. I remember the first year I was doing the podcast, and we got a message to check out this kid from Denver East who had 15.5 sacks. And I thought, this can't be real. He's a sophomore. No, he's the real deal. And he proved it today. He was going up against some of the best linemen in the Houston area, which is not even close to a slouch area when it comes to football. And DJ was putting the work on him. He would have had a sack if not for a face mask penalty, which wasn't even on him. He was putting all kinds of pressure on Brandon from the Houston Navy there. Yeah, Jaquan Brandon. And without DJ, I know that Phoenix shouted out the whole defensive line, but without DJ, I genuinely do not think that this game would have been what it was. DJ, he made a very sizable impact on the results of this. And so those are my two. But as a podcast, we did decide on a couple of playmakers of the game overall. And so I was able to talk to both of them. The first of which was Adrian Symalla, the running back out of Arvada West High School, class of 2026. He is a 5'10", 185 fella. And let me tell you, this guy has got wheels. More from him right here. What's up, people? Today I am here with Adrian Symalla from Arvada West High School, running back for Mile High Prep. Adrian, how you feeling after this go?
I'm feeling good. It was a good game, I think. That Texas team was pretty legit. They had a lot of 3-4 stars out there, but my line blocked really well, I think so.
Very good. And one of the standout plays from today's game was that one where you just juked like 10 guys out of their shoes on the way down, ran 2 of them into each other. What was going through your head while you were making that insane run?
I actually saw my brother at the center come up, block the linebacker, cut right off his ass, and then just made everyone miss, you know? You don't know what's going on in your head. It's kind of crazy, but after, I'll watch the film and go over it.
Very good. And I mean, speaking of, that there aren't very many people that are able to play against national level talent like this with their brother, and let alone on the same high school team.
Yeah.
What is it like to be able to have that connection with him on the field?
It's sick, man. I don't think a lot of people get to do that. I've been growing up with my brother for my whole life, and he's like my closest friend, you know? So having him like by my side and be able to battle with him is the best thing I could ask for, you know?
Very good.
Sick.
Good stuff. And I mean, what was your favorite part of today's game outside of that run and the tutty after?
I liked how the defense was getting feisty. It's nice to watch, you know? I had 3 plays, but I made the most of it, you know? So that's what you got to do when you're playing against talent like that.
Hell yeah. And close it out. How are you feeling for next week against Atlanta?
I'm feeling like it's going to be another game like this. Feeling confident, you know? We're on a roll. So it'll be good.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. Best of luck. See you. Thank you very, very much, Adrian, for stopping and being willing to talk with Phoenix, Mason, and myself. And all around, great game. And another guy from Mile High Prep that was able to have a very, very effective day was Caden Absher from Douglas County High School. I mean, you'll hear more about him from the interview I had with him, but he is a 6', 190 linebacker who managed to get a couple of picks in there, and all around he had a very, very effective afternoon. So here we are with Caden Absher. Today, you had 2 picks in this game, right? That's wild, especially against some Houston talent. Which of the 2 was your favorite?
I'd say the second one, definitely. Running it back to the end zone, that was awesome.
Have you had a pick six like that before?
No, that was the first one of the season.
Oh,
Yeah.
And when you are looking at a team like this from such an esteemed area like Houston, what is your mindset as a team to go into it and not lose the game before it's even started?
You gotta play hard, play fast, play physical. I mean, they're from Houston. Texas is a great state for football. You just gotta come out and compete. A lot of good players on that team, so you just gotta give it your best effort. I'd say effort is the main key to it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what do you think a win like this says to the rest of the country about Colorado football?
Colorado can play. That's 2 Texas teams in a row. I mean, we're on a roll. So Colorado is definitely underlooked for football, and I think this was a great way to put it out there that we can play.
Very good. And outside of the picks, what was your favorite aspect of this matchup?
I'd say down on the goal line, we had fourth and goal going into halftime. We were only up by 7, and we stopped them going in. So that was huge for us. Yeah, that shows the tempo.
That was a crazy play where he landed on his back and tried to send it out like the Titans.
Yes, sir.
But to close it out, how are you feeling for next week against Atlanta?
Next week, there's going to be some good players too. Georgia's a good state. We're going to have to come give more effort than we did today. I'd say it's just the effort that has us. I mean, all these teams, they have their talent. We have good talent too. We just got to give them more effort every day. So that's how we do it.
Hey, very good. Thank you very much, Caden.
Thank you.
And thank you very, very much, Caden. I did really appreciate being able to learn more about what you saw during this game and the different elements of what you enjoyed in this matchup. And I mean, I know that all these spring leagues are to better yourself and get looks and get offers, but ultimately we are all lucky enough that we are able to work in an industry around what amounts to games. And I personally think that that is beautiful. And I'm going to leave us with that for today's episode of the Playmakers Corner podcast. I have been Gideon. We should be back to our regular hosts, Simon and Cody, here in the next episode. Thank you again to Mason and Phoenix for coming out with me to this game. Gino will also be back next week, so all around from all 6 of us here at the podcast, thank you very much for listening. If you want to learn more about Mile High Prep, you can listen to our last episode, which I believe was episode 358, covering the San Francisco game. We also have episode 359 covering the NAIA Women's Flag Football National Championship, where Cody and Gino both went down to Atlanta. Funnily enough, Mile High Prep's next opponent to go watch the NAIA Women's Flag Football National Tournament. And you can also find us on social media at Playmaker Corner on Twitter and at Playmakers Corner on Instagram and TikTok. We will be posting the interviews with Caden and with Adrian, along with highlight reel of today's game, where we will be highlighting both Houston and Mile High Prep. Along with, on Instagram, Phoenix is looking at, he brought his camera, so we're going to look at including some of his absolutely dope shots in this next week in our social media output. So I hope that you all have a beautiful day. Remember to stay hydrated, stay safe, don't get into too much trouble, and stay poppin'. This has been Gideon, and you are listening to the Playmakers Corner podcast. Peace.